Hi everyone, this is Kelly from The Truthling Story, and I am here to show you some of my favorite art supplies. So if you're looking for tarot or divination things, look away. This is probably not going to be of interest to you, but I've had quite a few people message me about favorite supplies after, I've really done a lot of research and a lot of, testing and things of that nature, and I've kind of concreted into quite what I like and what I don't like, and so I thought it would be, I just literally finished doing this spring oracle. The lighting color is not going to be right, but I finished spring for my oracle deck and was touching up fall here. I had already finished fall, but I was just touching it up. And so I have things out that I actually, this is how my table generally looks. And so I thought this would be a good time to just do a run through of the supplies that I use and that I really like. So that's what I'm going to do. My phone over here. So I guess I'm just going to kind of work my way like this so that and just go through it all, even the most boring things, because sometimes the most boring things are important. For example, you can't actually see, but just over here is a paper towel holder, and you say paper towels. Paper towels are important, especially for watercolor. And I should qualify this by saying that my Lenormand deck that I finished, as well as the Oracle deck and then Tarot deck that I'm doing, are watercolor based. So that's the medium that I'm looking at. And so paper towels are important, and I want to say 3 thumbs up for Viva, V-I-V-A paper towels. I had seen it early on when I was learning watercolor. This was recommended, and it's so right. There's no quilting on these. So if you find something similar, they're so soft, and there's no quilting. So they absorb really well, and then they don't leave any quilt marks behind. Now if you want that, that's great, but Viva paper towel. So I just literally have a paper towel rack right here, just beyond sight, and I pull from that constantly. Over here I have 2 cups full of Tombow markers. I've tried a few different water-based markers, and these are definitely my favorite. They are dual tipped. I love them. I use these mostly for journaling. I really don't use them for painting, at least as of yet, but I do have them out because I use them all the time and I love them. They activate with water. You can swish them about. You can stick them on the palette and activate them and then paint them on. So I mostly use this for my planner and for journaling, but they're up here, so I thought I'd mention them. I'm definitely a Tombow addict. I've just been on the lookout for a good sketchbook, and not really finding one that I wanted, and I literally just zeroed in on the Stillman and Burn. This is the Beta. They have different ones based on the paper, and this is Beta, which has a heavy watercolor paper in it. And I have to say, because I wanted a specific size, I don't tend to paint large paintings. This is just for my personal sketchbook. I don't tend to paint or sketch large. Generally, if I'm doing digital, it's the size of my 9.7 iPad Pro. Generally, I'm using half sheets of paper, or of course for this Oracle size for the Oracle deck. So I don't paint or sketch large. And so I wanted this format instead of the landscape that a lot of the watercolor things were. And I have to say, I really love this. Is just with watercolor pencils and sketching, but I have to say I really like this paper a lot. It's stitch bound in. This was a little bit pricey. I used a coupon, but I think originally before the coupon it was $17. But I have to say, so far so good on this, and I really looked for quite a while to find exactly what I wanted. In fact, I picked up a little mini one just because I got them 40% off, and so I can pop that into my purse. So those right now. Before that, there was a I still have it. I should have brought it out. But again, most of them are like a long, skinny landscape, and it just isn't quite conducive to how I paint. So, not so great. Okay, so we're working our way down. So that's paper towel is important. I love Tombows. Love these sketchbooks so far. This is a new item, but I have to say, after just doing a couple cards, that I'm massively in love with it. So I don't know that this is necessary. I'm not reviewing this product yet because I haven't had it long enough. But this is a heat tool. So with watercolor, a lot of the times, you're painting in layers, and sometimes you need to dry them. And I paint very often at 1 or 2 in the morning, and so I have to go into the bathroom where my hairdryer is and blow dry. Two problems with that is that it blows too hard. I use a lot of water in my washes, and it can actually move the pigment, and the pigment might be right where I want it, right? So that's number one. And number two, which you can use a hair diffuser to help with that. But number two, I'm either moving it back and forth between here and the bathroom, or using it in the bathroom, which means I'm moving the art piece back and forth, and it's quite loud. In my apartment building, which is an older one, the bathrooms are the least soundproof, and so I hate 1 or 2 in the morning blow drying really loud. So this is still loud, but much quieter than my air blow dryer, and I'm way over in the corner of the living room, and so at 1 or 2 in the morning, I don't think anybody's going to hear it because we have a pretty soundproof apartments other than the bathroom, and B, if it's in the corner of the living room, not in the bedroom. So my point being, these are really hot, so it dries pretty quickly. I can hold it pretty far away, so it's not moving the water around at all, which is really great. And I do recommend keeping it up. I mean, you don't want to, these are hot. So again, so far, absolutely loving this, to have it like right on my desk and not have to move around. But I'm not, this is not a review of this brand yet. It does get very hot. There's definitely some reviews of this melting, which I can see because it gets very, very hot. But it was $10 with a coupon. You know me, I buy everything with a coupon. So if it melts in a little while, okay, I'll try something else. But at least I know I really like having one. So that is, and it's got a little stand that normally works, but for whatever reason it's being ridiculous. So loving that. I'm a big fan of this blue tape, because with watercolor you're taping down your work. I did start with just regular masking tape, and I had a lot more problems with that ripping the paper up or not sealing really well. This is a little bit pricier. I get it at the art store, and it's about $8 for this, but A, it lasts me quite a while because I do paint small, and B, it comes up easier, especially if you've just heat dried it, which I normally do, although I don't normally do the last layer in heat. Just in case the heat has any dimming effects. I don't really want that to happen on the last layer, so I don't tend to do it on the last layer. But if I do, that's warmed up these edges and it comes right off. So I am a big fan of actual tape kind of made for it, I know, or painter's tape versus just masking tape. But that's just from my experience. Maybe I had bad masking tape. So I gotta say hands up to that. Paper towels, obviously love this. This is a really nice kit. I know this is a weird thing, right? It's a math kit. I think it was actually, I don't know what brand this one is. This is Westcott, and it literally has this called as like a math set, but it's really great. I use this a lot. It's got straight lines, it's got 2 different kinds of triangles, it has this little oval-y thing, but mostly what I like is, what I use is the, for circles, I do like to work with moons and my own self, in my own stuff, and it has 2 of them, one that can hold any kind of pencil or marker, or like a liner pen or something of that nature. So I really like this little set. It was like $6, and then again I got 40% off, and I actually use this quite a bit. I'm going to put it away though in this drawer, which is another thing. This whole art table, which I've shown before, massive 2 thumbs up for it. This is just an eraser. Mostly I don't use this to erase, but I use it to rub off. Well, these are the erasers. This is a soft eraser. These are really good for erasing fine lines without really messing the paper up. White eraser is what you want, white eraser. What I mostly use is when I put down which I'm going to show in a minute, but when I use masking fluid and you have to get it back up, I use that mostly to get smaller areas. So there's that. These are my favorite fine liners, like for doing your lines, if you want them to be inked. I have Pitt pens as well, which are nice, but I have to say I return to the Microns. And I do get quite a few of these, or go through these, because I use rough watercolor paper, and it does wear the nib, especially of the small ones. But these last, in my opinion, better than the Pitt pens, but that's just my experience. I just know that when I go to buy new ones, I gravitate towards these. So this, you can get this little 3 set, like right now they have them on sale for $6 for a set of 3. Otherwise they're about 3 something a piece. So these are Micron Archival inks. They don't, wash away once they dry, and I go to watercolor over it. And my favorite is probably 05 and 03. Those are the two I probably use the most, but I also like the 01. I had used for a while the 005, but I have to say with rough watercolor paper, it almost always, they go bad, they disappear so quickly that it's not really worth it to buy for me. So I have shifted to mostly using for the smallest as the 01. So these are my favorite liner pens. These are my absolute favorite pencils. So these are, you can get, well, I get these at Hobby Lobby in the drafting area, not in the art area. And they're called Graph Gear 500. And I use the 03 and the 05. I love, love, love these pencils. I like the weight of them. They have this metal here that's kind of, I don't know, I just love these pencils. I've tried a lot of different pencils, and these are the ones that I love the most. So there we have it. I also do love this. I wanted to mention this Micron Perm 05. This is nice because this writes on things like photos, and I use these to sign all of my decks because it writes on things that normally pens will ball up on. So this is really, it's called Micro Perm, but this is also a Micron, and I can highly recommend this for writing on things. Again, my Lenormand deck was matte, so it's a little bit better than something glossy, but it's made to write on photos and things, but still be permanent and archival. So I do like that as well. I use masking fluid. I don't have my Winsor & Newton jar. I can't find it, but the problem with that is it's pigmented and it always separates, and yet you're not supposed to shake them. And even when you mix it to try to get that color pigment back in there, it creates bubbles, and so it's very frustrating. I'm going to get actually blue Schminke. I haven't tried that yet, but I've heard that's the best. I do really like the Daniel Smith. I'm storing them this way so the air bubbles don't get in, and because you don't want bubbles to come out. But this is, what this is masking fluid. So for example, this is probably the easiest one to see. For the footprints in my Oracle deck, we have the fox card. Well, I've drawn these on and then masked them off with masking fluid so that when I do my wash, it doesn't, then I can roll this off and it leaves the print in place in white. So that's what I use masking fluid for. I have tried this fine liner, which is really nice because it has a really oh, it's a screw. It has a really fine needle tip. I don't want to take it all the way off because I won't be able to get it back on in camera. But it's got a needle tip to it, which is a 0.5, which is what I like to draw, which I love. But I have to say the fluid that comes in this, which is, I don't know what brand this is terrible. Well, it's not terrible, but it bubbles up a lot. No matter what I do, I don't shake it. It leaves bubbles, which messes up my line. I'm going to get a bottle of Schminke masking fluid and put it in here and see if that works better. I'm hoping that's the case. But masking fluid is really important for what I'm currently, I know this doesn't show it because my seasons and a couple other things aren't having that, but all of the animals and other things are using masking fluid, and so it's actually quite important to me. I've done a lot of research and a lot of watching of videos on it. So it is something that I pay a lot of attention to. So let me move this away. Let's move that back. Put these down for the moment out of the way. So we've talked about all of that. These are brushes, so we'll get to the brushes when we talk about the brushes. This is just a scrap piece of paper, but always important to always have one out. This board, I love this. I don't know if we're going to be able to see what the name of it is. Let me pull these off. I just wanted to add a little bit more color into this fall. This is the fall card, which I already said. Can I see what this is called? It looks like dag board. I don't know. It's used to paint. You can get it at craft stores, and you can literally, like, people paint on it with, I don't know, probably oil paint. I'm not sure, but it's really thick. I got it at Michael's. And I love this board. I have this bigger piece, I have this piece, and I have another, I think, square piece. And I love it. This is what I use. Oh, here, clay board. There we go. I don't know, again, lighting. It's called clay board. I love this. Again, I don't paint with it. This is just like this because it's been on the here like this. But I tape down my paper to these boards, and I can then kind of tilt it as I want, move it around, pick it up. I just love this clay board. Again, not super cheap, but always use a coupon. So that's what you see here as well as here, and of course this is another size of the same things that I use to tape down my watercolor paintings. So that's important. I use this all of the time. So now let's move these out of the way. I guess we'll talk about paper since we're talking about taping paper down. My favorite paper, period, and I have done a ton of testing and researching, is Arch's watercolor paper. This is cold pressed, 300 grams, 140 pound watercolor paper. It's pure cotton. And I know that a lot of times people say use what you have. It doesn't make any difference if you have nice supplies, but I will say that my experience over the last year or so has been the opposite, that some things do matter. Now that's not to say if you don't have access to good paper or you don't have the funds for it that you can't paint, but I am saying that it makes it easier when you have good art supplies. That's been my personal experience. For my really for everything, and it's not cheap. This in my area of the United States for a 12 pack of 9x12 is $26. Now I never pay that because I wait for a 50% off coupon and get it then, but it's not cheap. The only other one that I have found that I like, oh no, that's Arch's, I don't even have any more. Oh, here it is. I do not mind so much the Strathmore, the brown. There's all different kinds of Strathmores, and the brown is the best, and it's a series 400. This is okay. This is about half the cost of this for the same 12 sheets, the same size. So $11.49 here. And then of course you can use a coupon on it. But I will say I don't ever use this now unless I'm just tinkering around with something. This to me makes a big difference in pilling, in the way that the paint moves, in the way that the paint looks when it's dry. There is a difference, and that's unfortunate for our pocketbooks, but this is what I paint everything on. That is something I want to keep. So that's my favorite paper. Okay, let's see what else. I have not been, I know you're going to all ask about these. I put this in a video or a clip. Let me grab the box here. I have tried several different brands of watercolor pencils, from really cheap ones to, you know, medium priced ones, and I gave them to my sister, and I, you know, for coloring books and things, because I said it's just not for me. It doesn't come off the paper. It leaves marks on the paper. It's just not something that I am interested in using, and that is until Joe sent me. She couldn't edge her deck, one of my Lenormand decks, and so I had told her that I would edge it for her, and replace it and edge it for her. And so she said, "Oh, I'll send you some. I can't use them anymore, so I'll send you some watercolor pencils." So I'm just thinking, you know, a pack of watercolor pencils, but no. Well, these are the Polychromos, which are the regular pencils. Whoops, let me grab. Which are also amazing, you know, and I do use them, but that's for me this is the big kahuna. This is the Albrecht Dürer Faber-Castell watercolor pencils, and I have to say I've probably tried 3 different brands of watercolor pens. I've tried Derwent, which is a good brand. I've also tried Staedtler, and I've also tried a cheaper, more craft store brand. And all 3 of those, I'm like, the Derwents were okay, but I still was like, no, not for me. These are amazing. And one of the things that Joe didn't realize, and I didn't realize until I started watching a billion videos, because I'm obsessive like that, is that once these, the pigment completely comes up when you put them down and you get them wet, the pigment completely activates from even the rough paper that I use. I don't know, you're not going to be able to probably tell. No. Some of these I put lines, and some of these are pencil lines, but it literally completely activates the pigment. It doesn't leave strokes unless you want those to be left, and it's just vibrant, beautiful, beautiful colors. But once it dries, it doesn't reactivate, and that is a big deal. For me, it's a big deal, because if you want something to stay where it is and then be able to do a wash over it, you're able to do that, and I've been able to use that to some great effect that has really made me happy. So I haven't had these but maybe a week or 2, but I am massively in love with them, and this is the 4th watercolor type of pencil I've tried, and they're expensive. On Amazon, you can get that, now it's 120. This is an older set. There's 120 total now, and you can get those, I want to say, between $200 and $300. So this is artist grade. These are not cheap pencils. So I'm not recommending that everybody go out and get them, but they're sitting right there, so somebody's going to ask. I love them. I'm blessed to have them to use and obsessed with them. So that's what those are there. These are just more, just different pens, but I have out the ones that are my favorite here. My favorite headphones are the iPhone headphones that come along with things. So there's that. We're kind of working our way here. These are my palettes. So this is called a watercolor palette. Oh, what's the brand of this? I may have to, I'll try to go and put in the description box, like True Art things do, so, you know, actual links to some of these things that I can find, because this doesn't say the brand on it. This is the same brand. Let me see if it says. I can't see it, but I really like these trays here. This is, I think, a 36, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 33 one, whereas this is the first one I had, which is a 12, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, so like 18 well, with some mixing areas. I will say plastic just doesn't, you know, it doesn't clean off very well. One of the nice things about this is it has a clear piece that you can then take off and wash. So this is nice, and I started with this and I used it until I needed more wells, and now I have a set of Daniel Smith master set of colors in here that I've got. But these palettes I really like. They seal up nice. I just like them. The only other thing that I would get differently would be a full ceramic palette, which they do have, but they don't have enough wells for me. So that leads us to the mixing wells that you see, which I just dumped on my hand. I am a huge proponent of ceramic mixing. This is my newest one, which is by Darice, which is that same as that blower. I had bought this on Amazon for about $10. It's really nice because it slopes, so I can put more of a pure color pigment up here, and it kind of comes down as I wet it. So I have stronger to lighter washes here. Really love it. But ceramic, let me just see if I can, I don't know if you can even see right here. Yeah. Let me get a dark color. So if I take this dark color, you can see that it, this has been seasoned, and after a while plastic will do better, but it generally pulls away from each other and you can't see it. Whereas you can mix colors together and see much better and have it stay together in a beautiful way on ceramic that you just can't with plastic. Now again, there's different ways you can season plastic and just after use, but you can see already this is going to stain. I have a squirt water somewhere, but this is that's a dark pigment, and it is already, it's barely been on there, and it is going to stain that. Good job, Kelly, good job. It's going to stain that. And again, there's ways to work with that. And some things that you can do to try to eliminate it, but it's going to stain it, and that was literally hardly on there. Not a big fan of plastic. I love ceramic. This is a little flower one that you can get on Amazon or just about anywhere, which I like to use just for washed colors. And then this, I just love the gradient here. It lets me have kind of darkest to wash, so I really love this one also. So I kind of use them for two different things. Ceramics to mix your colors. Big deal. Paints, all of the paints in here except for a couple holdovers, which I think are just this Payne's Gray and this Davies Gray and this gouache. This is gouache, not white watercolor paint. But everything else in here is Daniel Smith. I have, in the course of my Lenormand deck, completely been converted to Daniel Smith. And I love it so very much. There is a difference in paint. It is more expensive. You can get deals sometimes, like at an art shop that sells them individually. I can get the bigger tubes for cheaper than buying the little tubes, but there's no way around it. Daniel Smith is more expensive paint than what I was using before, which is Winsor Newton Professional. I've used Winsor Newton Cotman, which is their student grade, Winsor Newton Professional. I've also used the Kiritaki, which are beautiful, although they aren't quite the same as straight watercolor, but this, I'm not going to go into the nuances here. Beautiful paint, but it kind of acts a little bit differently. You don't get any granulation. It's just a little bit different. But I've used the Winsor Newton Cotman Student, the Winsor Newton Professional, and the Professional is nice. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just personally a huge fan of Daniel Smith because of the way their colors granulate and the way they mix and their vibrancy. For me personally, it's like hands down. And I will say, if you're interested in like Daniel Smith watercolors, and I have not, I wish I was paid to review these. You can buy for $20 238 color dot chart on Amazon and swatch these out so that you can try them. You get quite a lot of use out of these dots. If I just want to pull a little bit of a color in, but I don't need the whole thing, I just come to these dots. It really gives you a nice amount of paint. But the other thing is that it allows you to really see what that's going to look like on paper, so that when you do go to order a couple at a time, you're able to pick the colors that actually look like what you want. So if you're all interested in starting to collect more expensive things such as watercolor, such as Daniel Smith, I highly recommend spending the $20. I think in the long run it's going to save you a lot of money. And also, while these are pricey, you can get these little sets. Now, this is a little set that Chris sent to me as a gift because he knows I love Daniel Smith. This is a specific artist palette. So this is Alvaro Castanet's Master Artist Set. But that's what this, up here, you can see this strip. I've just swatched them out. Always swatch your paints. And then I will be doing a chart like this. I don't know if you can see this in the back there. But that way you can see all of the colors you can mix out of certain things. And I'll be doing that with this one as well. Maybe I'll do a quick video, because you can get a set of just a small starter set of primary colors, and you would be absolutely amazed how many colors you can mix out of a small number of paints. And so I will be doing that probably with these, because I want to do it, and I'll probably film it just because, why not, right? So you don't have to have these. I've built up over time. I have a friend of mine, and she bought some and I bought some, and then we split the 15 milliliter tube. So, you know, I've just kind of built up a collection and have a wish list, you know, a mile long of other ones, because I get inspired by the actual paint. So I do enjoy having a lot of paint colors. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But this is my palette right now. You can see it's all swatched out with information. This chart that I showed you on the wall is all the single pigments that I had at the time and how those would blend together. And this is invaluable. I highly, highly recommend doing this because you'll be amazed at the colors of paint that you can make. And if you have that there as a reference, and I'm painting and I say, oh, okay, you know what, I don't have a straight purple, but look at that beautiful purple. I just need to get quinacridone rose, and I need to mix it with a cerulean blue, and it's going to make that beautiful purple color. It just puts in front of your eye all the different colors that you can make. And again, that's just with all my paints that have just a single pigment in them. That's how I kind of reduced it down, otherwise it would be huge. So yeah. So anyways, I know this is going to be so long and nobody's going to watch it, but that's okay. That's okay. There's a few people who are, again, people have messaged me, so that's why I'm doing this. Brush-wise, you know, I'm still in the process. It's kind of hard. I just kind of, depending on what I'm doing, I have a lot of brushes, but I will say, you know, it depends on what you're doing, right? What brushes are going to be important to you. This is a new brush to me, which is a Da Vinci Squirrel brush. It's a mop brush, and I have to say, for kinds of washes that I do, this is amazing. I'll probably be getting a few of these. For watercolor, you know, the round brushes are really important. I use the 6 a lot. You can see, because this is drying, and I don't use that a whole lot. This is a 10, so I use a 6 and a 10 a lot because those are drying. This is a really cracked up sapphire, but it is a big flat, nice for doing gradient washes. So I use this a lot because it depends on the size, right? This is a 1/2 inch. Everybody's going to have different things that they use. You'll see a bunch of these over here, which are actually rubber tips. This is not a good way to show these, so I'm just talking about them. These are rubber tips that I use for masking fluid because I've become so frustrated by the squeeze bottles, and this is actually the best way to get masking fluid on, and it cleans right off because masking fluid will ruin your brushes. But these are probably the ones that I use a lot. You can see a masking fluid one here. Love it. This is another one I use a lot, which is an 8. So I have primarily the 6, the 8, and the 10 rounds I use a lot. I do really like the fan brushes. I just have a cheap fan brush. These kind of specialty ones, I get these cheap ones. I love, this is called, I don't even know if it has it. It's like cut out bristles. You're not going to be able to see it. I actually use this quite a bit, and I love it. But these are just cheap brushes from Michaels that I, you know, these kind of specialty quirky ones, I just get cheap ones. And they work just fine. These were, I like this brand. This is the Low Cornell Soft Comfort. and I actually have quite a few. This is not one of them, but they had these on sale for like $1.27, even though they're pricier, and I have a bunch more brushes. These are just the ones that I use a lot. And this is just, again, I've ruined the actual barrel, but this is a filbert, again, for washes. So yeah, that's so individual depending on this. I love this. Is from Jim Holt's Distress, but it is for flicking, splattering paint. You can splatter paint with all kinds of things, but this is my favorite way to do so. It makes a mess though, get stuff out of the way. I have ruined other paintings. And then the other thing is this, which is a drying rack. I didn't have one of these for a long time, but you don't want to dry your brushes with the like up like this, or the water goes down into the barrel, and that's not good for the barrel. So I haven't minded it too much because a lot of my brushes are just cheap brushes, but you want them to last even if they're cheaper brushes. But with this nicer brush, I did not want that to happen, so I do quite like this, and it was again $10 with a 50% off coupon. But I have brushes kind of all over the place, but the ones I've shown you are sort of primary ones I use. But again, I paint very small, so how you brush, how you paint, and what your size is going to dictate what exactly brush that you use to get going. So there you have it. I think I pretty much covered again all the things that I'm using currently and my favorites of those things over the course of making a deck. This is where that path has led me to these items that I use and love. So I hope that this has helped. Some of you have asked that question, and anybody else, yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.